we've got Landy at the top of the queue who says that from Florida, exactly, him, wants to show biblical texts have a scientific proof they are true. Okay, so evidence, in other words, scientific proof. Let's see if this person can present evidence. Is Landy there?
Hello, Landy?
Have we moved him up yet? Oh, let me click on it. There we go. All right, Landy, are you there?
I am. Genesis 1:29. Thank you. Genesis 1:29 outlines a vegan vegetarian diet, and Elizabeth Blackburn won a Nobel Prize proving that such diets are able to actually turn off genes which cause chronic disease and turn on genes which prevent them. Her particular study spanned only 3 months and showed a change of 500 genes within that 3 months. And this is clearly showing particularly to be a part of the answer to increasing mutational load, which, I'm sorry, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I did have a question.
Yeah, can you tell me what passage that was again? Genesis 1 what?
He said 1:19, I believe. Is that what you said? Am I correct? Are you on a speakerphone? I'm having trouble hearing you. If you're on a speakerphone, you need to take it off so our listeners can hear you.
No problem. It is Genesis 1:29.
1:29. Thank you. So I misheard that.
Of course.
I'm going to read it. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth and every tree that has fruit and seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth and the birds in the sky and all the creatures that move on the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food. Okay, so we've got this book that says a thing. I give you every seed-bearing plant and every tree that has fruit with seed in it, and they will be yours for food. So basically any plant that has seeds. So I understand your first assertion that is a theoretical diet.
It is indeed. As a matter of fact, you can also pull up that there are Orthodox Jews, for example, that hold a...
Well, hold on. We're sticking with the evidence first. I just want to make sure here.
We wanna...
So that is theoretically a diet. A diet is a set of foods that you should eat, right? So is your argument that is the only thing that God wants you to eat? Like that this is some sort of instruction, or is this just a list of some things that you can eat?
That is an instruction. As a matter.
Okay, why do you think it's an instruction?
Continue. Yes, because the only eating of meat, for example, I also said extra biblical text when I was speaking to Jonathan during the screening, excuse me. But Jubilees, it also states that during the flood, that is when particularly God gave permission to eat flesh. And there are also holdings such as called the 10 utterances of creation held by Orthodox Jews.
I got it. My question was, how do we know that that's an instruction, or why is that an instruction? So who is giving the instruction?
Well, it's you read it out in Genesis 1:29. For you it shall be for food.
I read a book that a man wrote. Who is giving this instruction, though?
Excuse me, that a man wrote? Yes.
A human wrote the Bible, correct? A human put ink on the page, correct?
Correct.
In fact, Genesis wasn't even ink on the page at first. Genesis was either bronze or Iron Age oral tradition first, and then later put down as ink on page. Is that correct?
That's not correct. As a matter of fact, the most ancient religious text that you'll find actually is in hieratic on pyramid walls, which is actually found to be the original Hebrew. You will actually find that there are holdings that throughout the dead.
Wait. Slow down.
Let's back up. So
you're telling me that there's parts of the Bible in Egypt that are the oldest parts of the Bible. And they predate the Bronze Age.
predates the Bronze Age, correct. A professor...
Okay, do you know when the Bronze Age was? Do you know when the Bronze Age was?
Excuse me, it predated both the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, sir. It happened exactly...
If it had to predate the Iron Age, if it predated the Bronze Age, because the Bronze Age came first. Do you know... Excuse Landy. Landy, stop for a minute. Landy, please stop for a minute. We're having a really difficult time hearing what you're saying. You either need to get off the speakerphone or put your mouth closer to the microphone because you keep fading out and we're not hearing what you're saying, okay? Now, what I'm wondering is, do you know when the Bronze Age was so that you know that these writings in Egypt actually predate the Bronze Age as you are claiming?
These writings, when you look it up, is going to reflect to be the oldest pyramid, the oldest religious text available. The two oldest forms of writing.
Well, no, that's not
that
true. I can tell you that right now. The oldest texts we have are Sumerian. They're Akkadian,
no, it's
actually.
not. When you look it up,
yes, it is. Yes, it is. Go look it up. Yes, it is. Landy, yes, it is. They are Akkadian from Akkad in the lower part of the Mesopotamia. Go look it up.
Yeah, I think that
that's where writing was invented in cuneiform.
Yeah, and the point here, getting back to the broader point, is you questioned whether I said a man wrote the Bible, right? That's my point. Is we know that, I mean, you look up in most study Bibles, right? They will say Genesis was an oral tradition before it was written down. So we have humans making up stories, maybe inspired by God or not, but writing them down. So somebody wrote something down at some point. My question was, if the Bible contains instructions, who's actually giving the instructions? Was it the person that wrote it down or came up with the story, or is it somebody else?
Excuse me, could you repeat that one more time?
My original question was, because you objected to my use of the word man when I talked about who wrote the Bible, and I'm trying to explain what I meant. The Genesis particularly comes from oral traditions and then eventually was written down. So that's what I was explaining by written by man, the physical act of writing these stories down. My question then is, you characterized Genesis, the dietary plan, so to speak, as a set of instructions. And I asked, who gave us those instructions? Was it the person who was writing it down, or was it somebody else? Who is giving us those instructions?
Thank you. First of all, I did not object to a man writing anything, or a woman for that matter, writing anything.
Skip that. I'm fine. I don't care if you objected. Let's fine. Skip that. I understand that. Who is giving us those instructions in Genesis?
Yes. There is a professor by the name of Wiseman.
Is there a reason that I'm going to mute you. Is there a reason that you will not answer this question? It was a very, very clear question. I've asked it 4 times already. And I have to wonder why you won't just answer it, because it's probably a 1-word answer, maybe a 2-word answer. But could you tell me one more time, who is giving us these instructions?
Yes, thank you. The written instruction, as was displayed by a Professor Wiseman, it's called the tablet.
Okay, I've muted you again. Maybe I'm not using the right words. When I say giving, I don't mean like somebody presented them as evidence or at a speech. I'm talking about the idea that one should do something. An instruction is a directions to somebody to say, this is what you should do to accomplish some goal. That's what an instruction is. If you want to assemble this furniture, get your Allen wrench out and follow the IKEA diagrams. Those are instructions. If you want to go to heaven, follow these rules. Those are instructions. But a person or an entity is telling us those instructions. So what was the original source? What mind came up with those instructions and delivered them to us? That's my question. So can you answer that?
Thank you very much. I was actually answering you. They were passed down from...
Okay, I'm muting you again. That's a very passive-aggressive way to do that. You were not answering me. You were telling a story about some professor, and I don't think that you're telling me, and maybe I'm wrong, that some professor wrote Genesis. So one more time, just tell me the name, just tell me a person, no story, no snarkiness. I'm genuinely trying to understand you. If you watch our show, we are genuinely trying to understand. So please, just answer the question. We've been talking to you now for quite a while. Who gave us those instructions?
I just said that they were passed down from Adam and Eve to Enoch on down. And
okay, so the instructions come from Adam and Eve?
Go ahead.
Hold on. So I want to understand. Sorry? Was it Adam or was it Eve who gave us the instruction on what to eat?
So now all your viewers are hearing you ask me if I was there to.
Okay, so I don't think he understands the question, and you're again not answering the question. You said Adam and Eve. Are you saying that Adam and Eve wrote Genesis, like came up with those ideas and then passed those ideas down? Or was it somebody else that came up with those ideas? I.e., let's cut to the chase. Let's cut to the chase. Hold on. Let's cut to the chase. Do those instructions come from God?
Of course.
Well, why didn't you say so? Why didn't you say so? I asked that question 6 times. Because you asked me if a human being wrote it down. Because you asked me if a human being wrote it down. No, I didn't. And this, Kelley, is a very common problem when you start getting into these discussions, that people don't understand how to actually actively listen to what you're asking them. I pointed out that a human originally wrote them down, and then I asked, but who actually came up with those instructions? I hope you see the difference, right? Who wrote them down, my point was, is irrelevant. The real question is that you are claiming that God is telling us that this is what we should do. Do I understand you correctly?
First of all, who pertains to a human being? At first you said, did a human do it? And now you're bringing up God. Who pertains to a human being, as all your viewers heard you? And
I don't understand your question. I don't understand the question. Could you rephrase it so I could understand it?
You just said who pertains to a human being, and now you're bringing up God. But
so are you saying that when somebody says who created the universe and who controls the universe and who decides to go to heaven and hell, that doesn't pertain to a God?
They need to clarify it, because that's the hole you were hoping I would step into, asking if a human is God or not.
I think you're looking for us to trap you, and that's not what's happening.
We're not. Here. I'm literally just trying to get you to
your questions to trap you.
I just want to cut short the conversation and get to your main point, which is that you believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that God is telling us in the Bible, gave us instructions to eat a certain diet. That's all I'm walking you through, like I've got you on a witness stand, and I'm just asking you questions. And I agree, Kelley, you're looking for traps. All I'm trying to do is understand your position so that I can then see if I have any objections to it. So do I understand your position correctly? God gave us instructions to eat the things listed in the section of Genesis you cited.
The way you just framed it right there is indeed my position, as well as it is scientifically backed, which you have not questioned and you will not be able to refute.
Yeah, I really, I used to be a fan of this show for many years before becoming a host. And this was the type of call that I really didn't enjoy, because it's obvious that this person is coming in with animosity, right?
With a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah,
yes.
They're not interested in genuine dialogue. It's like, I want to rush to this other point rather than just genuinely having a conversation so we can clearly understand each other and then get to the meat of the disagreement. This call could have gone very differently. It could have been, hey guys, I think that God instructed us to eat this diet, and there's scientific evidence that that diet is beneficial. What can we conclude from that? That's the conversation. Am I getting this wrong, Kelley?
That's what I thought.
Okay.
And
so
let's say all of that is real. right? God did tell us we should be eating a vegetarian diet in the Bible. And then we find out later, in thousands of years later, however many it is, that a vegan diet is pretty healthy. What is that telling us?
Yeah, that's where we want to go, Landy. We're not trying to be mean or to trick. We're genuinely trying to understand where you're getting, but we have to walk through the points to make sure we're not missing anything. So do we understand what you're saying, that A, God gave us instruction to eat this particular type of diet, and B, we now have evidence that eating that type of diet can be medically beneficial? Are those two things what you're saying?
Thank you very much, guys. And yes, it is. That's correct. Okay.
So I think, Kelley, you had raised the point of not to be snarky about it, but so what is sort of the question that you go to in science, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Okay,
I don't
what does
want to
that
be
tell
snarky.
us?
What I'm asking is, what do we infer from this knowledge that we put together here? What's the inference? What is your point?
Well, for example, there is a scientific fact which is called increasing mutational overload, which actually shows the human gene.
Okay. We get it. A vegan diet is better. Okay, we get it. It's beneficial. We get it. We understand that.
Do you understand what it means to just agree for the purpose of the argument? So we're going to agree for the purpose of the argument that a vegan diet, let's call it a vegan diet, is beneficial. But what Kelley's question is what does logic tell us about what we can infer from the 2 points you raised? A, you believe that God instructed us to have a vegan diet, and B, we have discovered, for the purposes of this argument, that a vegan diet is medically beneficial. What can we infer from that?
Some people or most people.
Right. Whatever it may be. Let's give you all the toys to play with, as J. Mike would say. What does that tell us? What can we conclude from that?
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Well,
I still have.
For example, and please.
Go ahead.
No problem. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Well, so we can. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure.
Excuse me. No problem. And excuse me if I'm bringing up something that you'd rather not. But for example, you used to have a colleague named Dillahunty, which, from what I understand, just went through some hard times.
You know what? He was never my colleague. So, I mean, you're wrong on that. Sorry.
Yeah. Again, we're seeing.
I came along after he was gone, and so did Cross Examiner. So he was neither one of our colleagues.
Yeah, we're on the call now, and when I ask you these questions, and then you divert or pivot to say, "Well, Dillahunty something," how are we to react to that in any other way other than to assume that you're trying not to answer the question? We're literally, again, we're just trying to have a conversation here. So why don't you talk with us, the people who are on the call, and ask us what we believe or what we think could conclude, or tell us what you think we can conclude from the 2 data points you gave us.
Hey, thank you very much. For example, if you have a loved one who is going through any heart problems right now, if they're fighting heart disease, these diets have been literally scientifically proven to turn
again. This is not. I don't think you're listening to us at all. We understand.
Don't understand where the confusion
is. We understand it's good. Okay, vegan diet is good. It's freaking great for people, right? God in the Bible said you should eat a vegan diet, right? Okay. If you take these 2 things, what can we learn from having those 2 things together? Why is it important that both of those things line up? What is the point that you called us about?
Thank you. If you are fighting cancer or a heart disease, then obviously
stop. We don't want to hear about the diet anymore. We don't. I'm going to drop him. He's not listening.
Yeah. No, I think that this person obviously wanted to call. I mean, I hope that everybody on all sides of the political, religious, dietary spectrums out there understands and sees we're trying to engage here, right? But this person called in and just either didn't comprehend, which I I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that he did comprehend what we were saying. And all he wanted to do was just keep telling us that eating plants is healthy, right? Like any doctor will tell you that. Like my doctor summed it up. Like somebody wrote in a famous book, like the best dietary advice is eat not too much and mostly plants. Like, that's if you want to sign up the best diet, that's great. But the interesting question for this show is, why do you believe that was an instruction from God? And then the follow-up question we were going to ask is, hey, here's all of this bad health advice that we get from the Bible that if you followed it today, we could show is actually bad for you. How do you reconcile your claims about the vegan diet in Genesis, which, again, is that really a dietary? He's saying, I gave you these things to eat. It doesn't necessarily mean I didn't give you anything else to eat. But what about all the bad medical advice in the Bible? So I don't think these people, this category of callers, genuinely interested in having a conversation. It's very frustrating.